Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about Season 1 of Pachinko. So, before I head into my thoughts and my feelings on Season 1 of Pachinko, as a quick disclaimer, I do not plan on having any type of spoilers in this video. I'm going to do my best to stay away from anything that might sound like a spoiler. But yeah, if you have watched this wonderful show, please talk about whatever your heart desires down in the comments below. So yeah, let's get going. First up, what is Pachinko even about? Let me read my notes for you so I don't mess anything up. Pachinko is a 8-part season that is on Apple TV Plus, and there is an intention to do a season 2. I was kind of under the impression that this was maybe just going to be a one and done season, but the way this season kind of ends, it's like, nope, there's definitely another season to come, and the creators of the show even have already said, hey, we're getting another season. So yeah, 8-part episode season, Apple TV Plus. It is based on the book by Min Jin Lee. I have not read the book yet, you guys. I'm very excited to get to the book at some point, though, especially after watching the show. And yeah, what the show focuses on, it follows the hopes and dreams of a Korean immigrant family across 4 generations as they leave their homeland in an indomitable quest to survive and thrive. And that is what the IMDb plot synopsis is for this show. And whew, you guys, this show, I freaking loved it. If you know me, I love all things historical fiction, and right now, Pachinko is seriously at the very, very top. If I were to rank all of the historical fiction that I have consumed this year so far, and I have consumed quite a bit of it already, it's not even the halfway point of the year yet, this show would be at the very, very top of my favorite historical fiction that's come out this year. All 8 episodes of this show were pretty much near perfection, you guys, and that's pretty hard to do nowadays, because most television, you'll have a good chunk of episodes that are very, very good, but you'll kind of have maybe 1 or 2 in there that are maybe a little bit slower and nothing much gets progressed, or there's just little things that are frustrating. But yeah, this show, wow is all I could say, you guys. Pretty much nearly damn perfect. It might be perfect for all I know. I don't want to say it's absolutely perfect. That might be too bold of a statement to say, but yeah, all 8 episodes, near perfection. I was massively engaged and hooked with this show just immediately from the get-go. I tuned in week after week, just eagerly anticipating the next episode, just craving to know, okay, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen to these people? Am I going to cry? You're certainly going to cry in this show. Let me tell you, I cried. This is going to sound silly out of context unless you've seen the show. There's a scene, someone has like a bowl of rice. I sobbed my eyes out. I was crying to the point that I needed a tissue, and I had to pause the show to wipe my eyes because I couldn't even see no more. Yes, over a bowl of damn rice, I was crying. If you've seen the show, you might know what I'm talking about. And what I love about this show, it's tackling so much and so many themes and messages, and it's kind of hard to even begin, like, okay, what is the show about? What is it doing, you know? And the whole show, it's about a Korean immigrant family, and it's going through multiple different generations and how they are struggling but yet surviving and adapting to any given situation. And yeah, the show is about resiliency and hope and the future and dreams and heartbreak, loss and grief. I think it's ultimately very much about family and culture, and what do those things mean to any given individual, you know? what does it mean to lose family? What does it mean to lose one's own identity or even culture or way of life and whatnot? And that's where the whole thing of these characters having to struggle and thrive and really adapt to new situations and new problems comes into play and whatnot. The show it very much focuses quite wonderfully and brilliantly on just everything I just mentioned, and it makes for just such a compelling show, episode after episode. And yeah, that's definitely why I was just so hooked and engaged to this show, because I think it stayed very strongly focused on what it needed to be focused on, I think. And everything about this show is just absolutely award worthy. I truly honestly hope when it gets around to award season next year, yeah, there are several actors that I hope get nominated for some awards. That the performances were simply outstanding. I loved the costuming, I loved the writing, I loved the directing, the whole look, design, mood, and tone of this show. Everything, all different areas of production came so wonderfully together in just such a cohesive manner that for a historical period drama like this, it is very vital that all those different aspects come together and work together to make something that is very believable. And you guys, I do want to touch very quickly here on the opening credits of this show. Everything about this show is great, including the damn opening credits. The opening credits of this show, it may just be me being silly, I don't know, but the opening credits are some of the best opening credits I have seen in a very long time, probably since Game of Thrones. Because Game of Thrones is definitely some of my favorite opening credits of just all time, and I think Pachinko's opening credits go right on up there at the top alongside Game of Thrones, you guys. That may be a bold statement, I don't know, but there's something about the opening credits of this show that is just so fun, you guys, just absolutely so fun, especially for a show that is rather dark and dramatic and serious and will tug at your heartstrings. These opening credits really do not kind of vibe with the rest of the show, but I think that's what works so brilliantly about the opening credits. And I recommend reading some articles about the opening credits, because the creators and whatnot of the show have talked at length about the opening credits and why the opening credits are done in the way that they're done. And I really love the reasoning and explanation behind all of it. And it makes the credits make a lot more sense once you kind of read what their reasoning and logic behind everything is. But yeah, the opening credits are definitely some of my all-time favorite credits, right up there with Game of Thrones, you guys. Moving on to the performances really quickly, the types of characters in this show, I just want to highlight some of my favorites. The heart and core of this show is the actresses playing Sunja. Sunja is a young woman who you're introduced to as a little girl at the start of episode 1, and over the course of every episode, you see her as she's a little girl, she becomes a young woman, and then there's an older version of her as like a lady, like in her 80s. I think she's maybe in her 80s if I got the math right there. But yeah, the actresses, so I'm not butchering their names. Let me tell y'all, I am not Korean. I don't know how to pronounce anything that is Korean, so I'm going to try my best with these names, you guys. I do apologize in advance. But yeah, the main performances, there's Minha Kim and Young. I'm sorry, you guys. Like I said, I'm gonna butcher all that. But that's the younger and older versions that play Sonia. Like I said, she is just the heart and core of this show. And if you don't like her, and if you're not sympathetic to her, then you're not gonna like this show. You know, you have to love her as a character. You have to kind of identify a piece of you with her in order to kind of go on this journey with her and whatnot. Yeah, her character is just one of the most remarkable, the most sympathetic, the most enjoyable. I was just there for her from start to finish, when she's a little girl, and then when she's a young woman, and then even her as an older woman. And the thing is, all those performances work in such great harmonious unity, if you will. It's like, even though it's 3 different actresses, it works so brilliantly and so cohesively, which is important, because you have to believe that this is the same character. You know what I mean? Because I mean, I've seen shows before that do like maybe a child or a young version and then an older version. You know, I've seen shows and movies that do that, and there's like something off about the performances, and you have a hard time believing, okay, this older version is this younger version, you know? And yeah, I just believed this is all one performance, you know, which is very, very important to this story. You have to believe that all 3 of these actresses, this is Sonia as a whole. And what I like about Sonia as a character as well, she's very smart, you know. She's a girl who pretty much comes from nothing, and she comes from very humble beginnings and humble parents and whatnot. She comes from nothing, but she's still very intelligent and smart and independent in her own way. But still, she's a young woman, and she's going to make mistakes. She can be very naive, and that's kind of the part of her that you have to be able to connect to and relate to, I think. And she does. She makes some pretty terrible decisions, we shall say. She makes some pretty terrible decisions kind of near the beginning that get her into some trouble. That's all I'll say without spoiling anything. And that's kind of where this story really takes off, is when she lets her naivety get in the way when she should have maybe held back, you know. And yeah, that the story, because of her naivety and whatnot, that's where it really takes off and gets going, and where the show ultimately kind of heads off into a new direction and whatnot. And I've not really even said when in time the show takes place, but it takes place in the early 1900s, and then we're going through like the 1920s and 1930s. But then there's a huge gap there, and then we do go to the 1980s, and this is where we get a whole nother generation, and this is where we get older Sonia, and now we're getting her grandson, and her grandson is named Solomon, and he's like a businessman and whatnot. And this is where a lot more themes of the show kind of come into play, because Solomon's whole plot, this is where the themes come into play about identity and the loss of oneself, the loss of one's identity, the loss of one's culture and whatnot. And Solomon as a character really having to come to terms with that, really cope with that. He has to reclaim his identity, he has to reclaim his culture, and it's a process. It's a very lengthy process, and the show really brilliantly tackles, you know, generational gaps, if you will, and Solomon is definitely part of this generational gap, and he doesn't quite understand things, and and that's kind of part of the fun of his characters, is will he kind of figure out, will he figure out himself, and will he figure out kind of the wrongs that he has done? You know, he doesn't see that he's done any wrong, but will he figure out that he's done some wrong? Like I said, I don't want to kind of get into some of the spoilers and whatnot with this. I'm trying to leave it very vague and whatnot. But yeah, the actor playing Solomon, Jin Ha, if I got that right, Jin Ha, I really liked his story as well. When I found out there was like the early 1900s and then an 80s setting, I was like, I don't know if I'm really going to like the 80s setting that much, but I really got into the 80s as well, and it totally worked. And then playing, I don't know how to kind of describe this character without kind of spoiling anything. I guess your antagonist. Shall I say the antagonist? I don't know. Is that spoiling too much? I don't know if that's spoiling too much if I call him the antagonist. But playing your antagonist, I guess I'll say, for lack of a better word, Lee Min-ho. Woo! This is your eye candy on the show. Let me put it that way. I really loved Lee Min-ho's performance as Hansu in this show. Like I said, he's kind of your primary antagonist, if you want to call him that. And yeah, his relationship with Sonia and whatnot, I really liked his character just quite immensely, and the role and function that he served, because his role is very specific and what it's serving within the larger narrative and whatnot. And all I'll kind of say about his character, episode 7, you guys, wow. Episode 7 is primarily an episode that is dedicated all to the Hansu character, played by Lee Min-ho, like I said. Episode 7 is easily the best hour of television in this series, and I might just dare to say, the best hour of television you're just going to watch, period, in your entire life, I feel like. Maybe I'm being just exaggerating, I don't know, but episode 7, wow. That's just a show or a movie by itself, if you will. And I freaking loved episode 7. Once again, another episode, I was crying my eyes out from start to finish. And this whole show, I mean, I can just go on and on about each individual character. There is such a plethora of wonderful characters, whether main characters or supporting characters. Every single character has a function, a role, a purpose that goes with Sonya's narrative, or Solomon's. Every character is moving the narrative forward. If they're not moving the narrative forward, they're moving something forward within a character, at least. And something else I've not really talked about with this show either, kind of the more historical context of this show. Like I said, it takes place in the early 1900s, and we're going through the 20s and 30s and whatnot. A big historical part of this show is, hopefully I'm kind of getting a lot of this correct here. I'm kind of just going off what was presented to me in the show and whatnot, because this is something I just did not know about, I was not aware about. I guess, hopefully I'm using the correct terming here. I guess the Japanese occupation of Korea, I guess is how that should be described. Just the animosity. Oh my god, you guys, the animosity and the hatred between the Japanese and the Koreans at this time period. Oh my god, I was not aware of this at all. I did not know this was a thing. How I did not know about this, I honestly do not know. This is a time period the Japanese, I guess, took over Korea at some point, and there's many rough scenes to watch in this show where you have Sonya, who is Korean, and there's like a scene where she's nearly raped by like a group of Japanese men. She is harassed quite often by Japanese characters. There's some pretty rough scenes in here, and the Japanese do not come across in a very good way. But yeah, I did not know about any of this, you guys, and it was really eye-opening and just made me think, and it's like I want to do more research about it, because it's fascinating. But yeah, as far as the historical context, you definitely need to be aware of kind of that going on as well, because that's part of the big themes going on in this show. Like I said, some of those themes about, family and family duty and one's identity and one's culture, and how that is a very, very much a part of your sense of self and sense of identity and whatnot. And yeah, that Japanese occupation of Korea and whatnot is a big part of this show, and the Korean characters having to survive against that and really having to adapt. And if you don't adapt, you die. You know what I mean? And you really struggle. So yeah, I really love the historical context of this show, and the lingering effects that has, even though a lot of that is pretty much primarily only in like the early 1900s, it's like there's still that lingering effect of that continues even into the 1980s with characters, and characters still having to kind of deal with that in their own way, So yeah, there's a lot going on in the show, you guys, and it all just works very cohesively and wonderfully together, just making this whole show absolutely spectacular from start to finish. And like I said, pretty much nearly damn perfect. I freaking love this show. And yeah, if you've not seen this show, I really highly recommend you check it out, because I think you're going to learn something. you know, I think you're really going to learn something. It's really going to be eye-opening to you. Yeah, wonderful characters, wonderful performances, wonderful stories and whatnot. Just such a brilliant show from start to finish. And yeah, I definitely can't wait for season 2. I'm very curious about season 2 and what it's going to explore, and hopefully it's as good as season 1. I'm a little worried it's not going to be as good as season 1, but I'm definitely here for the journey, and I definitely can't wait to read the book, because I'm curious what's been changed from book to screen and whatnot, because I definitely have a feeling there's some nuances that have been kind of shifted around and whatnot. But yeah, that's it for this review. Yeah, guys. So, have you guys seen Pachinko? If you have, did you love it? Did you hate it? Or if you haven't seen the show, does this review kind of get you curious to check it out? Because I kind of hope so. That's kind of my intent with this video, that if you are not aware of this show, or if you weren't sure if you want to watch it, I really hope this kind of gets you interested to go check it out, because this is easily one of my top favorite historical fiction dramas of the year. It just might be my favorite television show of just the entire year in general. It doesn't even have to be historical fiction. But yeah, let me know your thoughts about the show if you have seen it. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.